Hi, good morning everybody. My name is Dennis Winterswijk, and first of all I would like to say it is very, very nice to be back in a physical event after 2 years of running things digitally. But yet we are going to talk about digital today. So what I wanted to discuss with you first is an extensive research report that Inmarsa did together with Lloyd's List and Informa Engage around digitalization. Now we have an extensive research program focusing around crew welfare, around cybersecurity, and around digital. And this one is a survey that we did amongst over 360 shipping companies, ship managers, and ship owners, and see the state of the digitalization that they are in, and the objectives that they are looking for, but also the obstacles that they see down the road. So from this research, we learned that the main driver for digitalization is cost reduction and operational efficiencies. From the respondents, 83% of the shipping companies have actually indicated that they will introduce a fuel optimization solution within the next 24 months. And 91% expect a considerable savings coming from that. So it is a really, really big opportunity ahead of us. The other drivers for digitalization that were a result of the survey are a compliance with regulations, creating a better value for the customers of the shipping companies, improving the vessel safety, supporting crew welfare, and of course environmental improvements. So the largest benefits are believed to come from big data analysis, from IoT solutions, and from artificial intelligence and machine learning. We also asked the question, what are the obstacles that prevent you from adopting digital solutions today? And the three main ones identified there was a lack of evidence for value and savings, risk of a cyber attack, and the lack of staff training within the shipping company. So in my presentation, I want to show you how we can help and overcome a few of those obstacles. But first of all, let's talk Formula One. We had a fantastic weekend this weekend, especially for us Dutch guys in Abu Dhabi. But I won't talk too much about the result of the race. I want to talk to you about the similarities between Formula One and shipping and what we could actually learn from Formula One. So an average Formula One car has around 300 sensors only on board that monitor around 4,000 parameters, and they transmit around 3 gigabytes of data per race to the analyst based in the factory and of course on the track. And what the analysts do there, they really make use of the data coming from the car and big data. So they combine the data with, for example, historical data, data coming from the simulator, from the tire manufacturer, the OEMs that they are working with. And by combining all of that data, they want to come to the optimal performance. And that's, of course, where we have the link with shipping. We are also looking for the optimal performance of our vessels. So what can we learn in shipping? Well, let's say a modern LNG carrier has around 2,500 sensors on board. So imagine what we can do if Formula One can do this with only 300. Formula One, however, they have one thing that we don't have in shipping today and that we should aim for, and that is the sharing of a part of the data. So in Formula One, the GPS data is shared with all the teams. So they can learn from the other teams where to improve, what corners they can win some speed. And sharing of the data is a power that improves the performance of all the teams. So that is something that we can learn in shipping as well. Now, in order to get there, to get to the optimal performance and to get the data analyzed properly, there is 3 things that we need to achieve. One is a connectivity platform to allow for the continuous stream of the vessel data, the sensor data, towards the cloud in order for it to be analyzed. Secondly, we need the collection of the data on board of the vessel and process that in an efficient way in order to make it available for the analytics teams. And then the analytics teams. So those are our partners that I'll talk about a bit later on in the presentation. So see those as the engineers in the Formula One factory. So let's start with the connectivity platform. Fleet Express, when it was introduced in 2016, it was the result of a vision of many years before to provide not only the best performing global mobility satellite network, but also to create a technology standard for the industry where different stakeholders in the supply chain can bring their digital solutions to the vessel in a uniform way. The fact that over 12,000 vessels today have subscribed to the service are testament to the fact that the shipping community has apparently embraced this vision with us. The Global Express, which is the high throughput Ka-band satellite part of the Fleet Express solution, actually has quite a unique design. And the uniqueness lies in the fact, as you can see here, that we have the ability to bring different pipes of bandwidth towards the vessel. So that means that partners using solutions for data analytics, but also for separate bandwidth channel Fleet Connect that I'll talk about in a bit, are outside of the contracted customer bandwidth. So that in itself has two benefits already. So one, of course, is that bandwidth used by the one channel or the one partner is not conflicting with the bandwidth that is contracted by the shipping company, but also it's cyber secure by design, because the networks are completely separated on board of the vessel. Secondly, we need the IoT solution on board. And our IoT solution is called Fleet Data. And that's a sensor-agnostic, maritime-specific IoT solution in which we have so much belief that for the benefits of the industry that we have decided to make this a standard component of Fleet Express since last year. So every new vessel that gets Fleet Express installed also gets the IoT solution installed by default at no extra charge, by the way. How does it work? A local server collects the data from the different sensors on board, pre-processes the data, and sends it to a secure cloud that is completely customer controlled. So the customer has access to the data through a web interface, can analyze the data themselves, but also have the ability to decide which part of the data is shared with which one of their partners in order to provide this partner service towards a shipping company. So for example, through an API, you can decide to give all the data that is coming from the engine monitoring to your engine manufacturer to do their analysis and to improve the performance there. As part of the analytics program we have designed is called the Certified Application Partner Program, or CAPS. And basically we can decide the number of, or the group of CAPS into two. We have one group of CAPS that are using our Fleet Data solution. So they get the data and they can optimize the vessel performance using that data. They can do condition-based monitoring, condition-based repairs for the vessel. And there is a lot of them listed here. It's not all of them, and it's an ever-expanding ecosystem. But our good friends from Metis, and Michael joined the stage a little after me, he will show what great things can be done by using that data. The other category are the certified application partners that use Fleet Connect. And Fleet Connect is, as I've shown in the previous slide, a dedicated bandwidth towards the vessel that is available for that partner. And that partner is purchasing that bandwidth by the hour, so they can do a on-demand service towards the vessel. And typically you see video type of applications used for this service. So think of telemedicine, telehealth services as an example for that. So I would like to discuss two use cases of Fleet Data and Fleet Connect with you now. One is for the customer Rolldog, which is a Dutch heavy lift shipping company. And they currently lift data of over more than 250 sensors per vessel into their cloud. And what they do is they benchmark internally their entire fleet, one vessel against the other, by comparing the data and see how they can improve vessel operations individually. Secondly, they have partnered with one of our application partners called We4C, and their solution is for fuel optimization and optimization of the use of the generators, and there they have achieved a considerable saving in cost. The second use case is with Lloyd's Register, who are actually also exhibiting here at Seatrade, so please give them a visit. they are using the Fleet Connect service for remote surveys. So as we all know, in these times of pandemic, it's very difficult to reach a vessel physically in some occasions. So what Lloyd's Registers have done is enable the digital survey. They have a video application tool available that can be installed on any smartphone, and they can do a remote survey working together with the vessel's technical staff. And by doing so, achieving also, again, considerable cost savings. So the million-dollar question was, can we make digital profitable? And the answer for me is a firm yes. Even with the free of charge standard fleet data offering, our CAP partners can already achieve a 1.5 to 3% fuel saving, which is, of course, many, many thousands of dollars a year. So I would close off to say that with the use of data, with the good collaboration with partners, we can all win this race and hopefully same as much a championship. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's my great pleasure to be here tonight, this morning. Actually, my name is Mike Constantinidis. The last name is a little hard to pronounce in English, so you can just call me Mike. I'm the CEO of Metis Cyberspace Technology, and I would like to give you a taste of how we contribute on shaping the future in this extremely competitive and struggling business activity. We, as everybody knows, we are living in a very demanding and challenging times like no others, and especially during pandemic, this became a lot of even more challenging. The fluctuation of the fuel prices and the ever-increasing pressure due to the regulatory obligations create a very demanding environment for all the shipping executives. So nowadays, in this current season, the biggest challenge is the demand to reduce the environmental footprint, the emissions. And this is an extremely challenging task that needs to be fulfilled. As you all know, we have a target which is a very tough and very difficult to be achieved target, but definitely we need to find the way to do it. And this is a task that needs to be first properly measured in order to be achieved, in order to be improved. The CO2 targets set, if we don't take any measure at all, the result will be as the business as usual, which is not good at all. So according to the IMO pressure, we definitely need until 2050 to reduce by 50%. How this can be done? I will show you our insight. There are three things that need to be done. The new buildings, of course, need to be improved, so all the new vessels have to be environmentally friendly, if not zero carbonization. But this will not solve the problem because the new buildings, the new vessels that are being added to the global fleet are very small in number. The second thing is that we need to do modifications to the existing, to the retrofit vessels. And those modifications can have a radical, a very important decrease on the emissions. And third, but not at all least, we can improve the operation of the existing vessels. And I can assure you that there is a huge, a very considerable room for improvement in how we currently operate these specific vessels that are currently operated and traveling in the oceans. To be able to create a metric, an index that is based on the specs of the existing vessels is not simply enough. It's like we just buy a brand new refrigerator that is operating very good, it has the best specs, it is A-rated, but how do we operate it? If we leave, for example, the door open, we destroy all the situation. So this is a very insightful and successful example that was introduced by Professor Roe Radland. He said, if we buy the best refrigerator and leave the door open, we don't do anything good. So this is exactly what we need to put in the global discussion, that we properly need to operate the existing vessels. And the regulations force us, and all the indices that have been introduced, especially regarding the operation of the vessels, they need to be reported in every single voyage. If we do it once off, it doesn't help us improve, it doesn't help us optimize the environmental footprint on board the vessels. So the Poseidon principles, the initiative from the financial organizations that connect somehow the emissions of the vessels with privileged, very good terms in how to get loans, gives us a very strategic and critical incentive on how to do the right thing. We already have example of successful shipping companies that utilized, took advantage of those incentives and already managed to restructure some of their existing loans into much better terms, based on the less emissions, based on the better operations of their existing vessels. So the green vessels can have much better terms in getting money from the banks. And this is a game-changing situation currently. And one of the major, what I'm going to give you in today's presentation is some insights. For example, what about using alternative fuels? Yes, there are a lot of discussions about many different fuels. Some of them, they do have carbon in their molecule, and this is really challenging if they will result into decreasing the CO2. But in any case, we definitely need to be able to measure how much they currently create and how this can be radically reduced or optimized, I would say. We are participating in research and development programs regarding the use of ammonia, for example. Ammonia is one of the alternative fuels that definitely can do the change, together with many other players that can contribute on this. So another initiative that has a lot of great value is to modify the existing engines without replacing them. Just do radical modifications in order to be able to burn alternative fuels, like methanol, for example, or ammonia. We are having strategic cooperations in order to offer this kind of value-adding services to leading shipping companies globally. To ensure the compliance to the increasing pressure shipping companies have from the regulations. It is one of the strategic directions that we support the shipping community. In our days, data is extremely crucial, and it is something that is agreed by all the leaders and all the decision makers worldwide, that now we are living in the age of data. Without real, actual, reliable, continuous data feed from the vessels, you heard before from my friend Dennis the example of Formula One. They get data from 300 sensors from every single Formula One car. It is exactly what needs to be essentially and obligatorily need to be done from the vessels. We definitely need to get actual data. Without data, without the raw material, digital transformation is unfortunately not possible. The process is obvious. We need to get data, we need to clean this data, normalize it, and process it. And this is actually the only way to address this extremely multi-parametric and complicated issue. We at Metis offer an end-to-end solution, from getting the data from the vessels, normalize them, clean them. You know, many times the electronics create some wrong measurements, some garbage indications. You definitely need to isolate those, because otherwise you disorient the further steps of analysis. Then we enrich those data with third-party data. We are contracted with 4 independent different weather providers. And then the most challenging, the most stimulating part is to change those data into actionable information through statistical analysis, through many different ways, capitalizing on the science, engineering, and maths. But the most interesting and game-changing is to be able to predict how all those parameters will behave in the forthcoming periods, until the next destination, until the next voyage, how much this specific vessel will be consuming, will be burning, until reaching its final destination. And the good thing is that we at Metis are extremely flexible and adaptable. We don't need to obligatorily sell all the parts of our solution. We offer all the parts, but we can only give whatever is needed in every single different customer. And all this solution is certified by world-leading class. So this is an overview of the solution. We get data from the vessels, from hundreds, unlimited numbers, whatever we agree with our customers, signals. We are sensor agnostic. We can collect any maker, any model of any equipment that you can find in any retrofit or new building. Then we transfer this to an extremely secure cloud, and then starts the processing and enriching. We connect to the other IT systems of the shipping company, the ERPs, the PMSs, or whatever. We get data from third-party weather forecast providers, and we provide the results to the various different departments within the shipping organization, no matter whether it is C-level management or technical departments or operational departments or chartering departments or legal departments of other departments. Everybody needs to have access to the same data and to be able to somehow take advantage of the crucial, important, value-adding information that they do have. How we communicate with the users, it's very challenging. We can communicate with Metis in any channel of our choice, and even we can use a chatbot. We created the only chatbot especially made for maritime in plain English. You just ask a question and get immediately an accurate and reliable answer and a result or a report or any analysis result. ESG is very important. We are focusing on the environmental sustainability, and this is a big driver to go further. We do pre-voyage, but post-voyage analysis as well. So this is something that the decision makers take very seriously, because it is very important for me to know, for example, in the spot market, if my specific vessel, which is currently somewhere in the world, in Singapore, for example, and is it more profitable for my company to carry this cargo and move it to Brazil, or take this cargo, that cargo, and move it to Rotterdam, for example? Which one will be more profitable, will consume less, taking into account the optimal route that we offer, taking into account all the weather conditions that my specific vessel will encounter in the forthcoming route. And of course, we have extremely flexible on choosing whatever route we want, no matter if it is the route that the master of the vessel decided to follow, or another saleable route that Metis automatically proposes, or the optimal weather routing-based route, whatever we need, and whatever we want to base our analysis. So, at the end of the day, we do have a fleet of vessels, and we need to have a conclusive information about how every single vessel of my fleet behaves and how it will behave in the near future. For example, which of our vessels will be able to comply after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years. We do have shipping companies that have vessels that are okay even in 2026, and others that until 2023, for example, they need to do something. Otherwise, they won't be able to be operated. We do have a lot of customers, more than 270, 280 vessels in our platform, and more than 30 leading shipping companies in our clientele. And as mentioned before, the most crucial capital asset is the data. Every single month, we increase our measurements by more than 2 billion measurements. And this is extremely value-adding for benchmarking and other purposes. Thank you very much for your patience. I hope I created some good food for thought, and I will be available for any questions or clarifications you may need. Thank you.
Just a note to the audience, due to COVID measures, if you do have a question for our panel today, please make your way over to the mic over this side or that side to give your questions. I do have one question that's come in from our online audience. The question is, how important is standardization to the work you do, and do you participate in any data standardization projects? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you very much for the question. It was really very insightful, very challenging question. I would say that, first of all, the lack of standardization is one of the cares in this market, in this shipping business activity in general. And it is very correct that standardization is very important. Yes, we follow standards. We follow all, literally all the relevant ISO standards, but additionally, we apply the MQTT protocol and the protobuf for the buffering, which is introduced by Google. It is extremely important to follow a very careful and a very organized way in order not only to collect any data from any protocol, no matter if it is analog, digital, NMEA, or CAN bus, Modbus, whatever, we are able to collect any signal. But the problem of connecting to a sensor, getting a measurement, a signal, and putting in a database, it's simple, but nowadays, in our age, is not enough. You need to be able to do it properly and to store it for future more processing and analysis. And when we are talking about billions of measurements, if you don't follow one of the industry standard protocols, you won't be able to deliver the final result. So yes, it is extremely important, and we do it in the right way, and it is a never-ending story. We always need to be able to improve in order to offer value-adding services. This is the idea.
If anyone does have a question, please feel free to come to the mic and ask our panel. At the moment, there are no other questions online, just so you know.
Right.
So if anyone does have
we were
anything...
very clear then, Mike.
Dennis, you can feel free to answer that question too.
Yeah, well, Mike answered most of it already, but yes, it is an excellent question, and yes, it is very important to have the standardization. So similar to Metis, the data collection that we do on board also accepts all the different analog, digital, NMEA sensor data. But indeed, the challenge is to process it and to translate basically that sensor data into a standardized format. And we don't see, there are multiple different standards in the market today, and a lot of companies even don't accept one of those standards, but only use their proprietary data standard. So I think there is a big opportunity ahead for us to come to, ideally, one generic standard for naming data, for storing data, in order to use this in the most optimal way by as many service providers as possible, which in the end will benefit all of us in shipping for the efficiency improvements that we need to make in order to reach our emission goals and cost reduction goals. So yes, we definitely need to work towards that standard. And we are, in fact, involved in a number of those initiatives from our side as well.
And one more question to both of you. Are different sectors of our industry at different stages of adopting digital technologies? Is there something for those less advanced to learn from those further ahead?
Well, absolutely, if I may go first, Mike. What we see in merchant shipping, that the LNG and LPG carriers, for example, they are the most sophisticated vessels, and they have the most sensors on board to begin with, but also the budget to really start working with that data. So what we see in that category is that a lot of vessels are collecting data from many different sensors on board and use many different partners to work with that data. But also typically in-house they have a larger team and much more knowledge to work with the data and in their fleet operations center to really see the benefits of that. And if we move to other segments, for example, let's take the bulker industry. Typically they are less advanced in their digital journey, but it is a matter of time before it will come, because of course it needs some investments, but in the end the benefits by far outweigh the investments that needs to be done. So we are working closely with that fleet data proposition as a default for every sector in order to accelerate that digital journey for everybody in our industry.
Yes, I could agree more, Dennis. I need to say that shipping industry in general is a little behind other industrial sectors as far as the digitalization is concerned. And this is not only because it's an old school, traditional activity that is based on empirical rules of thumb way of managing. It's because there was a lack of connectivity, and this is something that Inmarsat, for example, did a very radical contribution in achieving a decent, acceptable start, and as the time passes, much better internet connectivity all over the globe. And this was catalytic in order to proceed to the next step. This is why this industry is not achieved so much as far as the digitalization, because they could not simply get connected and receive data from the sensors. Now we need to do some very quick steps, and this is extremely important for all the sectors, no matter if we are talking about dry bulkers, container ships, or liquids like tankers, LNGs, LPGs. We definitely need to speed up. Now we do have the satellite connectivity, and we definitely and desperately need to be able to collect the correct data. It is not possible without getting data. Whoever promises that can do considerable or analysis or performance measurement or whatever without getting data, I'm sorry to be very strict on that. It is not possible. You cannot do it with top-down approaches. We need to utilize our broadband connectivity and to collect the proper way data and then do the analysis into this digital transformation of our activity. The other industrial sectors, they installed SCADA systems or other data collection systems since many decades because they did have the proper ground in order to do that. Shipping needs to do it immediately, as soon as possible, and it is extremely important. We all understand, and all the forward-thinking executives, the visionary people in the shipping sector, nowadays recognize that if they don't properly and urgently embrace the digital transformation, they will run the risk of being not able to compete. And of course, the next day, because this is the fourth revolution in the long history of shipping, the ones that will not follow probably will be left by the sideway. And some will thrive. Some will be the winners of the new era. This happens always in what the historians later recognize as a revolution. This is the digital revolution in shipping.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
First of all, fully agree with you. So regarding the dramatical needs in digitalization and development in this sector, but I have a rather technical question. We are talking about quite several offers, platforms, and solutions, IoT solutions, first of all, on the fleets provided by various companies like yours, for example. But what about the good word was here, speed. What is the technical requirements currently we can face on the satellite communication in terms of bandwidth proposals? Because when we're talking about data transferring from, let's say, several hundreds of sensors, then we have crew consumption, then we have a video streaming, then we have a video surveys, then we have a crew complements consumption, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bandwidth is not rubbered, so they're quite fixed. So, and so far we are facing a lot of issues, especially based on the solutions provided. So quite often when the providers, not saying about MRSite, so in general, talking about let's say 4x2 or 10x5, whatever. So they're talking about MIR packages, not CIR. So, and when we start using a lot of IoT applications nowadays, we're technically limited where we are on that one. So that's how we can develop. So that's, and what is the amount of data required to be transferred, and how that one will be developed in terms of providing acceptable bandwidth to meet our demands, because that's the biggest challenge we have now. So, okay, of course we can have a relatively high speed channels, but the costs will be massive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And an excellent question. And of course, I can only comment from an Inmarsat perspective. So the main advantage that we have to offer to our customers is that Inmarsat is a satellite operator, which means we don't have to purchase bandwidth in order to fulfill customers' needs. We have the full bandwidth of the full satellites available. So like you've seen in my presentation, you can decide the bandwidth that you need for your vessel's requirements, for your business operations, as well as your crew welfare. And don't bother about connecting remotely for video or getting fleet data or at least sensor data off of the vessel. And why is that? Because we have those separate bandwidth channels towards the vessels. And because we are in full control of the satellite and we have all the bandwidth available, we can size those, let's say, bandwidth pipes according to the needs. So I'm sorry, I don't have the exact answer on exactly what data rate is needed to bring the sensor data off of the vessel. But we do have the SLA in place that this is a continuous flow, and it depends on the refresh rate and the amount of data, of course, the way that we have to size that, the way that we have to size that pipe. If you don't have a solution like that, you as a shipping company will have to implement your own solutions to manage the bandwidth that is given to you by your provider. So then you would really need to know, how much do I need for my IoT solution, how much do I need for my video solution, etc. And the other disadvantage of working like that is that in order to enable, for example, video, you are right, you need quite a high CIR for a good quality video, which is typically quite costly. In this solution, you don't need to purchase that bandwidth on a continuous basis, because basically you're paying for that bandwidth for the entire month, when in reality you may need it maybe 5 hours in a month. So working together with a partner that can purchase that bandwidth by the hour from us and bring that video application to you is a really cost-effective way of managing that bandwidth. So all you have to worry about is sizing the bandwidth for your business needs and for your crew needs, and the rest is put on top of that. I hope that answers your question.
I would like to add, as far as the IoT workload is concerned, first of all, I'm aware that Inmarsat has extremely competitive packages and offerings for the connectivity for the clients. So I think this is going to improve, and eventually the telecommunication expenses will obviously be decreasing. This is something normal that is happening in all the digital, and we know it also in our land, mobile or fixed telephony. But what I mentioned before was, because I have been asked, it was regarding the standards. The MQTT protocol decreases so much the volume of those IoT, because I mentioned before that you need to do it properly. If you don't do it, if you have an not real professional approach, yes, definitely you will be willing to transfer through the satellite all the signals, even the garbage signals, even the wrong signals in huge volume. In solutions that Metis solutions, all those signals are being cleaned. It's edge computing. They are being processed locally and then compressed extremely. So the data that is being transferred is extremely low. It's less than 100 kilobytes per hour, for example. It's nothing. It's really, you don't even notice it in your bill. The real volume in your satellite communication, as you know, is mainly addressing the welfare of the crew. When they need to talk to their families, when they need to do some video calls or whatever, this is the real consumption. It's not the IoT. Metis IoT does not really influence because the data transfer is extremely small. You don't even need to worry about it. But then those tiny little packages are being totally developed in the cloud and create the value-adding, valuable results. This is a different story. But what is transferred is very small. And what Metis offers is a real time. With a delay of 1 second, you can see whatever vessel of your fleet, wherever in the globe, what exactly is doing, what exactly is consuming, how exactly is traveling, what are the RPM, what are the, and how your main engine, for example, all the auxiliary engines are behaving right now in order to do some corrective actions. And this does not consume any broadband. The gentleman there. Yeah. That's a question.
Yeah. You gentlemen are providing magnificent solutions, and you are providing service for the industry to cope with developments happening now. But in case of problems, servers fall down, cybersecurity attacks, in how much time you can get back to the service? As like we can see Facebook before how many months, get back to the service after 6 hours. And instead of that, MERS, when they have like a cybersecurity attack before, how many months or something, like they get back to service after 2 or 3 days. So how much time you will take to get back to service in case of problems? So this is the question.
Okay, thank you. And indeed, this addresses the cybersecurity aspect of it. So a very relevant and a very good question. Also a very difficult question to answer, of course, because it depends on the severity. What I can say from our end is that we do have the highest grade of security measures in place because we also serve local governments. So the military standards for data security are extremely high, and those same security measures are also implemented for all of our clusters in maritime as well. And on top of that, part of our solution is the fleet broadband L-band network that is of course very well known in the industry, which is also used for the safety services. So for that we have a service availability target, which is monitored by the IMO, by the way, of 99.999% globally per year. So and there is an in-orbit redundancy for those satellites to take over traffic from one another in case a satellite failure would occur. So those security measures are put in place, and I am very glad to say that we have never had any serious cyber incident that affected customers or a large pool of customers. So there is no historical data to answer your question, how many hours it will take, and I only hope that I will never be able to answer your question fully.
Yes. Okay. The question had two aspects: is if a failure happens and the cybersecurity. For cybersecurity, of course, the biggest exposure is in the communication. So I think you had a very complete answer from Inmarsat. I can assure that all the measures have been taken. Cybersecurity is an issue that we always need to have in our mind. We always need to take measures. As far as the data collection is concerned, for our part of our responsibility, and for the analysis then phase, we had in our design principles, from even starting the creation of our software, of our solution, the cybersecurity as a very important thing that needs to be taken into account. For the IoT part, we have we follow all the ISO standard 27004, and also we have a white paper that describes exactly what measures we have. As far as the cloud, we are based on Microsoft Azure, so we follow all those standards. But we often, every couple of months, we pay independent companies that do penetration tests in order to sustain our assessment as far as the cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is something that you always need to be alerted. You always need to be taken measures, and if you do the proper things, I can be and assure you that you are bulletproof. It's exactly internet and all the digital world is the world like we live and we experience in our normal lives. You lock your car, you lock your office or your house, right, when you leave. It's obviously you need to do that with your digital systems as well. And you need to take all the measures and trust the professionals, the specialized companies for this. And this is exactly what we do, and we will keep doing it. This is a never-ending story. Now, as far as the failures, the damages, this is very important. The vessels, as you know very well, are very tough industrial environments, suffering from temperatures, humidity, vibrations, a lot of difficult situations. So this is exactly why we designed our electronic intelligent collectors, and we had very tough, very strict certification from Lloyd's Register, passing all the tests. But this is simply not enough. We do have the ability to remotely access through proper cyber-secured channels in order to fix a problem if something happens. In any case, we don't sell the IoT solution one-off. It doesn't work like that. We sell it as a service. So every single day, every single hour, our system monitors the health of the existing infrastructure, which is installed in hundreds of vessels. So when something goes wrong, when one signal doesn't come, or one torque meter, for example, needs to be calibrated, we immediately get an alert. And either we fix it or we inform the customer that somebody pulled out the cable, some fuse blown or something happened, because the idea here is to secure the continuous data feed in order to be able to do the analysis and give all the other valuable services. So yes, it is extremely important to monitor daily everything and all the signals that arrive properly. Otherwise, we all fail. And this is part of our job. This is part of the business. We offer data acquisition as a service. This is the idea here. Thank you very much for the question.
Another one from our audience. How many vessels out there still rely just on noon reports? Is there much resistance to new technologies in the market? To both of you.
Also a great question. And giving an assumption, I would say that over 95% of the vessels are still using the manual noon reporting. And which is of course a very manual task and a time-consuming task on board. And a task, honestly, that can quite easily be automated by connecting the right sensors on fuel levels, for example, or levels, and get that reported every day at noontime. We actually have a number of application partners providing that service using the fleet data as the input for the noon reporting, where considerable time can be saved. So today I would say north of 95% are still on manual noon reporting, but I expect this to decrease quite rapidly over the coming years, because this is really one of the low-hanging fruits that can quite easily be capitalized.
I think Dennis was very polite. I will be more, maybe I sound cynical. Noon report is the way of managing this business in maybe the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, but definitely not now. We are more than 2 decades within the 21st century, and noon reports is a ridiculous, outdated way of having an accurate and reliable way of monitoring your fleet. Yes, indeed, many vessels are still in this not proper way, and this means that there is a huge room for improvement, but needs to be done properly. Any analysis based on fragmentary and questionable as far as the reliability is concerned, no reporting, is garbage in, garbage out. I'm sorry to be very strict on this. We keep putting more and more workload to the crew to complete extremely complicated reports once a day, which is not the proper way. It is very funny to see in the noon report of a vessel what was the weather, but the weather is constant for 24 hours. What was the temperature of this, the pressure of that, or whatever? Those parameters are dynamic. They change many times a day. In order to be able to provide some reasonable analysis, you need to have, according to the relevant ISO standard anyway, you need to have every 15 seconds one indication from every single parameter, and automated without any human changing things or writing things. You cannot simply do Internet of Things, IoT, with a piece of paper and a pencil. It is not possible, I'm sorry. The only way to go forward this industry is by an industrial IoT and getting proper signals and then doing proper analysis. With manual, and whoever promises and offers solution, digital, in quotes, solutions based on garbage manual noon reporting is promising something that is not achievable, and this is creating a disappointment because the results are not proper. So let's stop this bullshitting and go directly to what we need to do. And we need to do it as soon as possible.
Would that be the last?
Good morning. I'm the last guy, aren't I? I've gone over time already. This isn't really a question either, it's more an observation about the tension I see that exists between the business drivers for companies like yourselves, Mike, to sell your product, get people to adopt your product, and the people that want to buy your product are the people that want to maximize their profits by maximizing their efficiency. The tension exists, however, and it's a little bit like when Formula One, to use your example, Dennis, that introduced a whole bunch of regulations where everyone had to use all the same tires and the same parts. I think the tension exists between individual companies maximizing profitability set against the point that you made, Mike, about carbon emission, reducing emissions. And if all I wanted to do is maximize profits, I'll fit jet engines to the back of my ship and burn as much fuel as I like to get there quicker than everybody else. Obviously, we can't do that anymore. And so it's all very well individual companies saying we can use digital information and digital data to maximize your profitability. However, the tension exists that everyone has to meet some sort of threshold to reduce their emissions. And someone made a point yesterday about, does reality follow regulation or does regulation follow reality? And I think it's the case that regulation follows reality. So I think there seems to me to be an absolute requirement for companies such as yourselves to collaborate, lead the way, develop these digital analysis techniques. Yes, to maximize profitability for the company, because that's what they want to do at the end of the day, but more so to aggressively meet those emission targets. However, until the regulations are set in stone, that it is a legal requirement that everyone has to meet these aggressive targets by date X, then companies like yourselves, I think, have to be the ones to take those steps forward to say, the top line of what we're offering you is a reduction in your emissions, because that, and I thought it was fascinating that that was the thing that you focused on, was reducing emissions, more so than just, if it was, I mean, the title of this session was profitability by using digital analysis, but you went straight away into talking about reducing carbon emissions, which I think is the key point there. So it's not really a question, it's more just an observation, I think.
I'd still like to comment to that, but thank you very much for that overview.
By the way, Dennis, Lewis was robbed.
Sorry?
Lewis was robbed.
Lewis was not robbed. But I can appreciate, I would have said the same if things were the other way around probably. But anyway, I think the two things, if done properly as an industry, profitability and reducing emissions can definitely go hand in hand. And what we need to do there is to make sure that all the stakeholders work together. So we typically use the phenomenon that we call rush to wait, which means the ship goes full steam ahead to the port of destination, and just before it gets there, it learns that she can only berth 36 hours later because it's full, stays on the anchorage, so a lot of fuel burned to get there, a lot of fuel burned still while waiting on the anchorage. So if there is a good use of data and a good collaboration between all the parties involved, the port could have informed the shipping company that the earliest berthing possibility was 36 hours late. Route could have changed using optimization tools. Speed could have been reduced. So there's a lot of things that could have been done in that scenario, which saves both emissions and cost. So for me, the two things, they really go hand in hand if done right.
Absolutely. And what I want to say, and respectfully disagree, there is a tension, but not this tension. The tension is between the followers of the conservative approach, don't change anything, and the new trends, always in this kind of revolutions, there is a battle between old style and the new era. But I need to say something and make something very clear. When we are talking about ecology, it's also economy. It's the two sides of the same coin. When we try, and you all fight to reduce the emissions, it's actually to reduce the fuel consumption. It's the consumption that creates emissions. So when we want to be more green, when we want to optimize, decrease the environmental footprint, to be more environmental friendly, this means more money in your pocket, because you consume less, you spend less. And this is extremely important, and we need to make this very clear. We try, and all the regulations force us to be more green, but save more money for the company. So it increases the profitability. All those environmental regulations will increase the profitability. And I can assure you, from the data we collect from existing companies that trust and support us and give us their fleets, that there is a huge room for improvement in how those existing vessels, as they are, without any modification, to improve their operational profile, their speed profile, to stop wasting fuel, to stop operating generators without any use. Bear in mind that the auxiliary engines on board the vessel contribute radically in the total fuel. It's not only the main engine. And also all those huge pumps, all those huge scrubbers, for example, they consume electricity. We do have forward-thinking shipping companies as customers that want us to provide them with electrical profile of every single vessel, to know exactly how much electricity they produce and they do consume, in order, when they do have excess of energy, when they are traveling in the deep sea, to be able to charge some batteries and use them later, at a later stage, in berthing, in other stages, and use this excess of energy which is wasted. We do have lots and lots of good things to do to increase the profitability and to decrease the environmental footprint. And then, after we do that and we make our operation more reasonable and good, then also we are going to do next steps and change the main engines and change or do some modifications and burn, for example, LNG or methanol or whatever else. Yes, but we have a lot of work. And what I need to focus and emphasize and repeat once more, it is not possible to manage anything if you don't measure it first. It is not possible, I'm sorry. This is pure logic. First, you need to measure it accurately, reliably, and continuously, and then do some changes and keep measuring it in order to confirm that you are doing the right thing, right? So this is what we do, and this is our contribution, and it's appreciated. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. I think we'll wrap up there for today, but thank you, Dennis and Mike, for today's session. A very encouraging one, and thank you to the audience for any questions that you had, and online too. So, round of applause for Mike and Dennis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That's all right.
We are at your disposal, even offline.
Yeah.
Thank you.